A teenager who was not even supposed to be on the plane became the only reason 312 people made it home alive that night. This is the story of how a boy with no ticket, no boarding pass, and no permission ended up being the hero nobody saw coming. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Marcus Chen was 16 years old when he made the worst decision of his life. Or maybe it was the best. He still cannot decide. It was a Friday evening in October, and Marcus was standing outside Gate 27 at Denver International Airport, watching his older sister Emma board Flight 408 to San Francisco. She was heading back to college after fall break, and their parents had driven 3 hours to see her off. But Marcus was not supposed to be there at the gate. He had stayed in the car, or at least that is what his parents thought. The truth was different. Marcus had followed them inside, hanging back in the crowd, because he and Emma had fought that morning. A stupid fight about nothing important. He had said things he did not mean. She had cried, and now she was leaving, and he had not apologized. So Marcus watched from a distance as Emma showed her boarding pass as she walked down the jet bridge. As she disappeared from view, his parents were already heading back to the parking lot. He should have followed them. He should have left. But something stopped him. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the fear that something bad would happen and those angry words would be the last things he ever said to her. Whatever it was, Marcus made a choice. He saw a family with 4 kids struggling with bags and tickets, the gate agent distracted and overwhelmed. He saw his chance, and he took it. Marcus slipped past the podium, walked down the jet bridge, and boarded Flight 408. No ticket, no boarding pass, no plan, just a 16-year-old kid who needed to say sorry. The plane was packed. Marcus squeezed past passengers shoving bags into overhead compartments, searching for Emma. He found her in seat 19C, window side, already buckled in with her headphones on. When she saw him, her eyes went wide. "What are you doing here?" she mouthed. Marcus leaned close and whispered the apology he should have given hours ago. Emma's expression softened. She forgave him. She always did. But then came the problem. The flight attendants were doing their final checks. The doors were about to close. Marcus needed to get off the plane, but the aisle was jammed, with people still settling in. He tried to push back toward the front, but a flight attendant stopped. "Him?" she asked for his boarding pass. Marcus froze. He did not have one. He stammered something about being in the wrong seat, about needing to get off, but she was not listening. She was annoyed. The flight was delayed already, she told him. To find his seat, or she would have security remove him. Marcus panicked. He spotted an empty seat in the back, 32F, and he took it. He would explain everything once they landed. He would deal with the consequences later. Right now, he just needed to not get arrested. The plane pushed back from the gate. The engines roared to life, and Marcus Chen, the boy who was not supposed to be there, felt his stomach drop as Flight 418 began to taxi toward the runway. Takeoff was smooth. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, calm and professional, welcoming everyone aboard and announcing an estimated flight time of 2 hours and 33 minutes. Marcus sat in 32F, cramped between a sleeping businessman and a woman reading a magazine, trying to figure out how much trouble he was in. His parents would be furious. The airline might press charges. He had snuck onto a commercial flight. That was a crime, right? He pulled out his phone, but it was too late. They were already in the air, and he had to switch it to aeroplane mode. So Marcus sat there, heart pounding, replaying his choices, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. An hour into the flight, something changed. The plane shuddered. Just a little at first, the kind of turbulence that makes people grip their armrests but does not really scare anyone. Then it happened again, harder this time. The seatbelt sign dinged on. A flight attendant's voice came over the intercom, asking everyone to remain seated. Marcus looked out the window. They were flying through clouds, thick and dark, lit up every few seconds by flashes of lightning. The plane shook again, and this time people gasped. Bags shifted in the overhead compartments. A kid started crying. Then the lights went out. Not all of them, just the cabin lights, flickering off for a few seconds before the emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a dim, eerie glow. The woman next to Marcus dropped her magazine. The businessman woke up, confused and frightened. And then the pilot's voice came back on the intercom. But this time, it was different. This time, there was tension in his voice, a tightness that made Marcus's blood run cold. The pilot said they had encountered unexpected severe weather. He said they were working to navigate through it. He said everything was under control. But Marcus could hear it. The doubt, the fear, the lie. The turbulence got worse. The plane was not just shaking anymore. It was dropping, falling through pockets of air, lurching sideways, tilting at angles that did not feel right. People were screaming now. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, swinging wildly as the plane bucked and heaved. Flight attendants were shouting instructions, but their voices were barely audible over the chaos. Marcus pulled his mask on with shaking hands, his mind racing. This could not be happening. This was not real, but it was. The plane dropped again, a sickening lurch that made his stomach shoot into his throat, and then there was a sound. A loud, metallic grinding sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Something was wrong with the plane. Something bad. Marcus did not know anything about aviation, but he knew that sound was not normal. He looked around wildly, searching for Emma, but he could not see her from where he sat. The cabin was a mess of panic and fear, people crying and praying and holding on to each other. And then, through the noise and the terror, Marcus heard something else. A voice, calm, steady, coming from the front of the plane. One of the flight attendants was trying to restore order, telling people to stay in their seats, to keep their masks on, to stay calm. But Marcus could hear the fear underneath her words too. He unbuckled his seatbelt. The businessman next to him grabbed his arm, tried to pull him back down, but Marcus shook him off. He did not know what he was doing. He did not have a plan, but he could not just sit there. He had to do something. Marcus pulled himself up, gripping the seatbacks for balance as the plane continued to shake, and he started moving toward the front. He made it halfway up the aisle before a flight attendant blocked his path. She was young, maybe mid-20s, and her face was pale with fear. She told him to sit down. Marcus ignored her. He asked what was wrong with the plane. She hesitated. And in that moment of hesitation, Marcus saw the truth in her eyes. They were in serious trouble. The flight attendant's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent and clipped. They needed someone in the cockpit. Now, One of the pilots was incapacitated. Marcus did not understand what that meant at first, but then he saw the other flight attendant rushing toward the front, and he heard fragments of conversation. Heart attack, unconscious, co-pilot trying to fly alone, in a storm, with a damaged plane. Marcus felt the world tilt. This was not just turbulence. This was not just a rough flight. They were going down. And then Marcus remembered something. A stupid, random fact from a documentary he had watched months ago with his dad. A show about aviation disasters. There had been an episode about a flight where the autopilot failed and the backup systems did not work, and the only reason the plane landed safely was because a passenger who used to fly small planes years ago helped the crew. Marcus did not fly planes, but he knew someone who did. His uncle. His uncle who had been a flight instructor for 20 years. His uncle who had spent countless weekends teaching Marcus about aviation, showing him simulators, explaining controls and instruments and procedures. Marcus had never actually flown a real plane, but he had spent hundreds of hours learning. He pushed past the flight attendant and ran toward the cockpit. The cockpit door was open. Inside, Marcus could see the co-pilot, a woman in her 40s. Her face slick with sweat, her hands moving frantically over the controls. The captain was slumped in his seat, unconscious, another flight attendant trying to revive him. The co-pilot glanced back, saw Marcus, and shouted at him to get out. But Marcus did not move. He told her he knew how to fly. The co-pilot stared at him like he was insane. Marcus did not blame her. He sounded insane. He was a 16-year-old kid with no business being on this plane, let alone in the cockpit. But he stood his ground. He told her about his uncle, about the hours of training, about the simulators. It was not much. It was barely anything, but it was more than nothing. And right now, nothing was all they had. The plane dropped again, alarms blaring, and the co-pilot made a decision. She told Marcus to sit in the jump seat. She started barking instructions. The storm had damaged their navigation systems. The autopilot was offline. They were flying. Blind, and she needed help monitoring the instruments while she focused on keeping them level. Marcus sat down, his hands trembling, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. The instrument panel was a wall of lights and numbers and dials, overwhelming and terrifying. But he had seen panels like this before. In simulators, in training videos. He knew what some of these readings meant. The co-pilot told him to watch the altimeter, to call out their altitude every 10 seconds. Marcus did. His voice shook at first, but he forced it steady. 15,000 feet. 14,500. 14,000. They were descending too fast. The co-pilot was fighting the controls, trying to level them out, but the storm was relentless. Wind shear battered the plane from every direction. Lightning flashed so close Marcus could feel the static in the air. The co-pilot told Marcus to check the fuel indicators. He scanned the panel, found the gauges, and his stomach dropped. They were burning fuel too fast. The co-pilot cursed under her breath. She told Marcus to calculate how much time they had before the tanks were empty. Marcus did the math in his head, his uncle's lessons flooding back. 8 minutes, maybe 9. They had less than 10 minutes to get this plane on the ground, or they were going to fall out of the sky. The co-pilot radioed air traffic control, her voice tight but controlled. She gave their position, their situation, their fuel status. The controller's voice came back, guiding them toward the nearest airport. But it was too far. They would never make it. The co-pilot knew it. Marcus knew it. But neither of them said it out loud. Instead, they worked. The co-pilot adjusted their heading, fighting the storm every second. Marcus monitored the instruments, calling out readings, watching for warnings, doing everything his uncle had taught him. The flight attendants had managed to revive the captain, but he was in no condition to fly. He was conscious, barely, giving advice when he could, but the co-pilot was on her own. Except she was not. She had Marcus, and somehow, impossibly, they were still in the air. 6 minutes of fuel left. The storm was easing, but not fast enough. They were still 30 miles from the airport. The co-pilot made another decision. She told air traffic control they were going to attempt an emergency landing at a smaller regional airport, closer but with a shorter runway. The controller hesitated. That runway was not rated for a plane this size. The co-pilot did not care. It was their only chance. She changed course. Marcus watched the altitude. 5,000 feet. 4,000. The plane was shaking, groaning, barely holding together. The co-pilot told Marcus to prepare the cabin. He ran back, told the flight attendants to brace for impact. People were crying, praying, holding hands. Marcus found Emma. She was pale, terrified, but when she saw him, she smiled. A small, broken smile that said she understood, that she forgave him, that she loved him. Marcus did not have time to say anything back. He ran back to the cockpit. 3 minutes of fuel. 2,000 feet. The airport was in sight. The co-pilot lined up the approach, her hands steady despite everything. Marcus called out their speed, their altitude, their descent rate, 1,000 feet. The runway was rushing up to meet them, 500 feet. The co-pilot pulled back on the controls. The plane's nose lifted, 200 feet. She told Marcus to hold on, and then they hit. The ground, the impact was brutal. The plane bounced, skidded, the tires screaming as they made contact with the runway. The co-pilot slammed on the brakes, reversed the thrust, fought to keep them straight. They were going too fast. The runway was too short. They were not going to stop in time. But then, somehow, they did. The plane shuddered to a halt, smoke pouring from the tires, alarms blaring, but they were down. They were alive. For a moment, nobody moved. The cockpit was silent, except for the sound of ragged breathing. Then the co-pilot turned to Marcus. She did not say anything. She did not have to. Her eyes said it all. Emergency crews swarmed the plane. Passengers were evacuated down the slides, shaken but unhurt. The captain was rushed to a hospital, and Marcus was pulled aside by airport security. He told them everything, about sneaking onto the plane, about the cockpit, about helping the co-pilot. They did not arrest him. Instead, they called his parents. They called the airline. They called the FAA. And slowly, the story came out. The teenager who was not supposed to be on Flight 48. The boy who had no ticket, no boarding pass, no permission. The kid who had helped save 312 lives. The media found out within days. Marcus became a headline. The teen who saved a flight, the stowaway hero. People called him brave, They called him reckless. They called him both. The airline did not press charges. How could they? He had helped land the plane, but they did ban him from flying with them. Again, his parents grounded him for 6 months. His uncle cried when he heard the story, proud and terrified in equal measure. And Emma hugged him so tight he thought his ribs might crack, and she told him he was an idiot. But she also told him he was her hero. Marcus went back to school. Life went back to normal, mostly. But sometimes, late at night, he thinks. About that flight, about the choices he made, about the fear and the chaos and the impossible odds. He thinks about the co-pilot who sent him a letter thanking him, telling him he had a future in aviation if he wanted it. He thinks about the passengers who had no idea that the kid helping in the cockpit was not supposed to be there at all. And he thinks about how a single stupid decision, sneaking onto a plane to apologize to his sister, ended up being the reason everyone made it home alive. Marcus is 17 now. He is taking flying lessons, real ones. And when people ask him why, he tells them the truth. Because sometimes being in the wrong place at the wrong time is exactly where you are supposed to be. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.